In this video, I'm going to show you how to become a seriously dominant prop out in the field by getting you as strong as possible. So all you need to do is follow along with these exercises and they're going to make you super strong in the gym, and that's going to help convert out in the field. So you would have seen guys like Taniela Tupou lifting some seriously big weights, okay, especially on the legs. Now, there is very good reason for that. So scrummaging, obviously we need super strong legs. That should be obvious, okay? So what are the best leg exercises? So what you'll see mostly, especially in professional sport, is a lot of props doing some heavy back squatting. And what would be the reason for that? Okay, so one, it's going to build up the glutes. Okay, so the glutes are one of the key muscles in order to be able to drive through contact because they extend the legs. Okay, so the glutes are a really good one. So what you'll see a lot of props doing is low bar back squats. Okay, because one, it's going to help build up those glutes. Now, what could be some other exercises that are really good for building up the glutes? Now, what I like to use is I like to use a lot of hip thrusts because it's been shown that the hips, okay, or the glutes are strongest when they're almost fully extended, okay? So you can really overload the glutes in that extended part. So what I like to do is I'd like to do glute bridges, but I also like to include bands on it so they're even heavier up the top. And that way we can overload the glutes to their most capacity that we possibly can. So when I program back squats, I often will do it with a band. Okay, and I do it for band for the same reason that as you're going up, you have to keep on accelerating. Whereas when you're doing a normal back squat, you actually don't have to keep on accelerating. The band forces you to keep on accelerating up. So if you have the chance, add bands to your back squats, okay? And you can keep them on. And that's going to force your glutes to actually keep getting stronger and stronger because as you're going up, it's actually getting harder and harder. And as I said before, the glutes are strongest when you're nearly fully extended. So it's actually going to train your glutes even better than doing just a normal back squat. And this is why in my programs, I'm always trying to get people to do what's better. And what's better would be to use bands, okay? Which means it's slightly less weight, okay? But you're going to overload the stronger position. What I love about this split squat is one, he's doing it in a stable way where he's holding onto something. And then two is the length of his legs. Okay, so like the wider you have your legs, the more glutes it's going to be. Whereas if you have very narrow legs, it's going to be, so leg position that is, it's going to be more quadriceps. So right now he's probably going to be training more of his glutes more so than his quads. Okay, if you wanted more quads, you could do it with your legs not as far as apart. Now, I actually like to do this sort of thing on the Smith machine. I think it's a far better variant if you have access to a Smith machine because it's even more stable than this. Okay, so this is stable, but a Smith machine makes it even more stable. Okay, so what that is doing is allowing you to reach high threshold motor units because one, it's stable, it's easy to set up, okay, it's safe. And what we want to do is reach those high threshold motor units, which just means we're reaching more of our muscle fibers. Okay, the more muscle fibers we can sort of access, the stronger we are. And that is one of the adaptations of strength training. So strength isn't the adaptation, but being able to reach, your brain being able to reach more muscle fibers is. And this exercise is a great way to do it. So I like to use the Smith machine for this. Here's the big one where I see a lot of props are way too weak. And when they come to me, I make sure that we build this up because what it's going to do is help them out in the field massively. And that is their quads are weak as. And that's because they've done a lot of back squatting and not much either front squatting or pendulum squatting, or here I'm doing a hack squat. And I think a hack squat machine, if you have access to one, is an awesome machine to be able to build up the quads appropriately. And what you will see is maybe you do have a good back squat and you go to like a hack squat and you're like, whoa, I suck at this. And this is going to make a massive difference because this is what extends your knee. And if you look at a scrum, all right, down in this position when you're driving forward, if your quads are weak, what you'll do is you'll shoot your bum up higher. Okay, in order to keep your knees low and to drive through, you need really strong quads. Okay, so I always get a hack squat, a pendulum squat, or a front squat. So I actually prefer front squats over back squats, even for props. Okay, and then I use other exercises which cause less fatigue, like the hip thrust, in order to build up really good solid foundation of glutes and quadriceps. Yeah, there's two muscles that are going to really help convert what you've built through the glutes and the quads, okay, into the field. Okay, so number one is the calves. You need seriously strong calves in order to be able to transfer that force through. Okay, so the thing I like is to do leg press calf raises, and I like leg press calf raises because they're the most stable. We can get that most motor unit recruitment and grow the calves the most. Now, the big thing I do is actually overload that bottom position. Okay, so when your foot is fully facing up, it's fully stretched out, that's where the gastrocnemius, which is the big calf muscle, is actually strongest. So that's where we want to overload it. So what I do is isometrics there, okay, where we do some holds for about 8 seconds, and that way we can really get as many motor units as possible fired up. And then the other thing I like to do is overload that bottom position. If you can overload that bottom position, your little calves will grow. I promise you. Even my little calves have grown from being able to do that. Now, the other thing you need to do is also get a really good Romanian deadlift. And I like Romanian deadlifts in particular compared to normal deadlifts because it's going to put more emphasis on the lower back. You need a seriously strong lower back because there's going to be a lot of force going through it. Okay, so the more that you can actually isometrically contract those back muscles, those lower back muscles, all right, the better it's going to convert for your power you built through your hips, okay, going up your spine. So having a really strong RDL, and I like to have different variations. So you have your Romanian deadlift. Okay, you can have your stiff-legged deadlift. Now, stiff-legged deadlift is going to do more hamstrings as well. But those two variations are probably my favorite in order to have a super strong lower back. So if I had to pick a couple of exercises for you to focus on for the legs, it's going to be a hack squat, number one. So you can build up huge quads and glutes at the same time. It's the most stable. Now, a lot of people don't have access to a good hack squat, so you could do that on a Smith machine by elevating your heels, okay, and doing a similar style hack squat motion, or you could call it like a high bar back squat in the Smith machine. Now, if you didn't have that, then I'd go to a front squat, and then I would use a back squat variation, okay? So there are all these different variations. The other thing I would do is make sure you're using bands so you're having to drive all the way through, okay, rather than only accelerating once. So they're two big things I would be doing. Now, the other thing I would be doing for the glutes, I would especially be training the glutes. I'd be doing hip thrusts, and I always give my props hip thrusts so they have super strong glutes. Okay, so if you have a machine, do it on a machine. If you don't, use a Smith machine. If you don't have that, just do a normal barbell hip thrust, and that way you can get as strong glutes as possible. And I would use a bands on that too. Now you just want to stick at those exercises, get them super strong, and you will have super strong legs. Now, you obviously need some more hamstring work, and you need your RDLs, okay? So you need your Romanian deadlift for your lower back, and you will need your either at least a seated hamstring curl, okay? You'd need that, or a lying hamstring curl. So it's no good just being strong, okay, and being big. You also are going to need to be powerful, okay? So you need to be able to move fast. So being able to be good at broad jumps is a big one. I make my props. Hopping, being able to hop on the spot, and then to be able to work towards hopping just for distance, and then be able to hop side to side, okay, and then moving all the way into being, you should be able to bound on one leg, okay. If you can do that, man, you're going to be such a weapon. To be a big player and then to be able to bound and be fast, it just changes the game, okay. So you need to be able to do these things, and I incorporate all these things into my programs. I do use some box jumps in order to help you recruit more motor units. I also like to use, the single leg hopping. I use a lot of hopping and a lot of pogos, okay, to teach you how to contact the ground, okay, while also building other qualities. So like a rate of force development, you need these things. Now, other things you want to be adding in closer to the season, or you can add it in if you just need more power in general, is some Olympic lifts. So you could do some snatch high pulls, are really good because you can do them quite fast, or you could do some weighted jumps. Okay, so you can do a back squat weighted jump. I like to do that with bands as well, which changes it also. So there's all these different options that you can do for your power, okay? So and there are different types of power. So we need to be working speed, okay, where you're working very quickly, okay, and then we need to be working more with weighted, so like weighted throws are going to help too. And this goes for your upper body too. I'm not going to touch too much on upper body, but there is so much power stuff that you can be doing. Just remember that I'm going to go into sets and reps later on, but keeping it very low volume and very high. So size and strength for the upper body, okay? So this is also important for you to get a bigger upper body, obviously, to be able to take the hits, to be able to throw people around, to be able to hold the scrums. Now, a lot of people will do a lot of bench press, and that's totally fine. Now, when I program bench press of late, I've been doing a lot more wide grip bench press, and because it changes the angles of the elbows, which changes the fibers of the pecs that are activated. Okay, so I prefer a wide grip bench press rather than a close grip. And then I prefer doing wide grip chin-ups also, because you're going to get more of the lower lat fibers. So I think it's really important that you have a wide grip bench press, okay, over all the bench presses, and it even hits the same fibers as an incline, okay? And then once you've gotten really, really good at a flat wide grip, you can move on to like an incline as well. Now, one of the big ones for props is, I don't see done enough, is actually a behind head press. If you have the mobility, which you should try and get the mobility because it's going to help your shoulders in the long run, I would get a really good behind the neck press, okay, and a wide grip. Now, the other things I like for props is building up really big traps. So how can we build up really big traps? Rows are actually a really good one to build up the traps. Even these upper traps here are built from doing rows, okay? Because these upper traps are actually, what they think they are is actually big stabilizers. They actually have a lot of fast twitch muscle fibers, which is really interesting. So to get big traps, what we can do is Kelso shrug. So like it's like a row, but you're only just trying to pull back as much as possible. Now, if you just do rows, those fibers aren't going to be hit enough, okay? So do as much weight as you can, and you're only moving it like half an inch, okay? So if you can do that, it's going to be a really good one to build up around the neck and the upper traps, and that's really important for your scrummaging. Now, you're also going to want to add in a little bit of neck work, and I like to do isometrics on the neck. That's a really easy one to do. There's a couple of different angles you can train your neck from, and that's just going to give you extra benefit there for your scrummaging and helping prevent concussions, or at least reduce the impact of concussions. So what sets, reps, and how many days a week should you be trained to maximize strength, hypertrophy, and power? Okay, so it depends on what part of the season you're in, okay? So if you're during the season, it's going to be really hard for you to be able to do 3-4 times a week in the gym, okay? And it's not going to be beneficial, okay? It's going to cause too much fatigue, especially with your trainings that you're already doing, and you're not going to get the growth you would want, okay? Because growth comes from being able to stimulate more muscle fibers, okay? So the muscle fibers you haven't reached yet, we need to be able to keep on reaching those. And the only way you can do that is if you're fresh, okay? If you're not fresh, you're not going to reach those, all right? It's as simple as that. Fatigue will stop that. Now, if you are in season, I recommend 2 sessions a week, okay? And that allows you so much more time to be able to do your off-beat conditioning. I'm going to touch on conditioning after this, but that gives you more time for your off-beat conditioning, gives you more time for your skills, okay? So your skills are what are really important. Your ability to catch the ball and handle the ball early, even your catch and pass as a prop is still important, but then your scrummaging skills should be your bread and butter. So you should be really good at your scrummaging skills. So if you can do extras on your scrummaging skills, 1, 2, 3 sessions of that a week, that's going to make a massive difference to how you play out in the field. Okay, then on top of that, if you're going to do your strength sessions, 2 sessions a week, all right, I think is maximum in terms of strength work, and I think it's also a minimum. Okay, so you could do 1, all right, but you're going to have to do, 3-4 sets of every single muscle group, and that's going to be hard. Where if we split it over 2 sessions, okay, we can reduce fatigue, we can get better results. Because if we split it over 2 sessions, we only need to do 1 working set of each muscle in order to be in growth for hypertrophy. That's really cool compared to if we do 1 workout, one set of every muscle group, we would have to do 4 just to maintain. All right, so really important that we split it, especially if you want to keep size or you want to keep on getting bigger. Okay, and being big is important for prop and strong. So what about off season? Okay, so like the maximum strength sessions I recommend are 3 to 4. Okay, so 3 full body sessions. If you do 3 full body sessions in a week, you're getting the most stimulus that you can possibly get. Okay, we're reducing the amount of time that you're going to be atrophying. So I really like 3 full body sessions. It also allows for more other things. So it allows for your speed training. It allows for you to still go and do some extra tackling practice. Okay, that's what you should be doing. If you want to play a high level of rugby, okay, it's not just about being strong. All right, you need to be able to tackle well. You need to be able to have good hands. You need to be able to scrum well, obviously. So the last one is 4 days a week. So that would be an upper, lower, or lower, upper. Okay, you can add some stretching in between that, and you'd want a sprint session in there as well. You always want to have at least 1 sprint session a week, okay, where you're hitting your max speed. It's going to look after your hamstrings. It's also going to keep you as fast as you possibly get, and you might be getting faster. Okay, and that is super important for you out on the field. So they're my favorite splits. So how many sets and reps do you need to do? And it really depends on what you want and how close you're going to train to failure. So if you're going to do 3, 4, 5 sets on a movement, okay, there are different ways you get stronger. So there are different adaptations. And some adaptations, like coordination, we need to do a bit more of it. Okay, so if you're going to do a upper lower split, then you're going to do it you're going to hit those muscles twice in a week. Okay, now assuming you pick the same exercises. If you do different exercises, you might not get the same stimulus because different exercises, even though you might be doing your chest muscles. And here's an example: a wide grip bench press on a Monday, and then a close grip or a normal grip bench press on a Thursday are going to train different fibers. Okay, but a close grip bench press and a incline bench press will train the same fibers. Okay, so what you need to understand is that if you want to get the maximum amount of growth, then you probably want to pick the same exercise. And if you pick the same exercise, then that same fibers will get the growth stimulus twice in a week. Okay, and if you do that, you do 3, 4 sets, what you want to do is you want to be about 2 reps away from failure. Okay, if you're going to do less, okay, which is totally fine to you, you might do 1 to 2 sets. So if I'm doing something 3 times a week, then I'm only going to give you 1 or 2 sets. Okay, but if you're doing 2 sessions a week, then I'm going to give you 3 to 4 sets, okay, twice a week on the same fibers. And what I'm going to do is give you 2 reps away from failure, and that's really important for building size. Okay, I'm talking about size, not as much strength. So strength is going to come from putting on size as well. So one of the adaptations is hypertrophy, okay, which is going to make you stronger. And that is putting on size. Now I have whole videos going through this. So if you want to go back through my YouTube and actually have a look of what it means to put on size, all right, go and watch those. Now, something a lot of props actually struggle with, well, I think they struggle with, I've seen, is fitness, okay? They hate doing fitness and they're never fit enough for the field. But how can we make you super fit, okay? So the big thing is obviously props are usually heavier people, Okay, if they're heavier people, then running and doing a lot of running is probably not going to be very good for them. Okay, it's going to be harder on the joints than someone that's lighter. Okay, so what I like to do with them is a lot of off-feet conditioning. Okay, so that means on the bike and on the rowing machine or a ski erg. Okay, where the joints aren't, especially the ankles, the knees, the hips, aren't going to be under a whole lot of pressure all the time from the eccentric motion. Okay, being able to absorb force. Okay, which also causes a lot more muscle damage and fatigue. Okay, so what I like to do is either longer zone 2 work, so 30 minutes on the bike, okay, in the mornings. It's very low fatigue. They could work out afterwards. That's a really good way, 30 to 40 minutes, staying under 70% of your max heart rate, and just being able to build that up over time, looking at that distance that you went and just trying to slightly build it, but making sure that your heart rate isn't still getting above 70. Okay, so that is what we want. Then other things we can add in on top of that is short sprints. So I like really short 5-second sprints, and then with like about an 80-second rest. That's a really good one. Then 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and then 1 minute rounds with 1 minute rest is another really good one. Okay, so those are things you can incorporate straight in right now and get yourself a lot fitter. So I like to have a full off-feet day for someone if they really want their fitness. On top of that, then you can do things like some extra running as well at training. And same thing with that, I would be incorporating some sort of sprint training, and I would be incorporating some sort of interval training into that as well. So they're the best ways for you to get fit. Now, the other thing you need to take into consideration, something that takes up a whole lot of brain power, is actually your skills. So being really good at your skills, being really good at your scrummaging. All right, the more efficient you are at tackling, the more efficient you are at getting off the ground. Okay, these are things that are going to suck less energy. Okay, and the whole reason why you stop or you fail at things is because your perceived amount of effort has gotten too high. So if we can reduce that, then you're going to go a long way. So that's really important.